Hello and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me today, co-hosting as always, well, not as always, as recently these days, the Dr. Jameson Maxwell. Jamison, welcome back on the show. And it's been a while since we've gotten in the weeds, talked some OU football, but with a ChampU BBQ, there'll be some important stuff. So we're doing a recruiting special today, focusing on ChampU, some of the stuff that's happened a little bit recently. At some point when we get tied together, we'll do a full deep dive on some of the stuff we missed. But this is all about the future, all about Crutin. And let's. How are you feeling? What are your thoughts on ChampU? Bit of a cold recruiting track until now with 24. But like last year, it's kind of heating up again.
Yeah, it feels good, honestly. And we're kind of scrambling. We wanted to do our podcast tomorrow, but it's like we have to do it tonight. We get 2 commits today. And it feels like the good old days whenever we're rushing to the computer because we're just getting commits after commits. Feels really good. It's fun. So we'll kind of just run through a lot of these guys that came to this ChampU BBQ. We'll talk a little bit about our 2 commits too.
Yeah, for sure. Because they're definitely a lot to dive in here. Let's just go straight to it. Don't want to bury the lead. OU's 2 commits. I believe both went down today. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, let's start with James Nesta first, because obviously I think that's a fun one to talk about. We can just talk about him as a football player first, but he's going to be a dual sport athlete going baseball. And it just makes you think, how much did Kyler Murray do for this football program just staying in the MLB draft and getting that top 10 draft pick? The reputation that he has in terms of OU and dual sport athletes with baseball and football has been astronomical. It was a big selling point for Mario Williams whenever he came and committed to OU. And now we're getting, James Nesta out of North Carolina. This isn't like some guy in our backyard and, he's going to be a pitcher and a quarterback, like we've had in the past. This is a linebacker, a 6'4" linebacker from North Carolina, wanting to come to Oklahoma because he sees an opportunity to get on both sides of baseball and football.
Yeah, I mean, it's props to, the athletic department and, Skip Johnson, of course, for being as flexible as they are. It's not as easy to do the 2-sport thing at other schools, usually want you to focus only on football, only on baseball, one or the other. But because the athletic department is so cohesive and the relationships there, obviously not with the head coach anymore because Lincoln's gone. We've shown that we can do it in the past with Kyler, and I think the foundations of that are incredibly appealing.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's not as much on the football program when it comes down to these like baseball, football kind of hybrid thing. The football program's going to adapt. They have the resources too. It's really, can the baseball program keep up with the football player? Because the baseball program knows that the majority of his time is going to be spent in the football workouts in the off season whenever he's not playing football. And Skip Johnson is probably the reason we keep on getting these type of guys, because they have this whole setup. And I'm sure there's a complete framework in terms of class schedule and workout schedule that they've just completely recycled as the baseball program that they show these guys, and it obviously keeps working.
Yeah. And I mean, just thinking about balancing of egos, we've both been in sports. We know how head coaches can be, it's they want their guys for their sport. So the ability to be like, hey, we want to be a 2-sport program. When Skip Johnson tweeted out today, his looky here, he tweeted out a little graphic that said 2-sport you. Not only just being cool with it, but being like, yeah, this is something we want to focus on. Just so awesome. So awesome.
Yeah, it honestly, and this is not like we're talking about the baseball storyline because it's the fun thing to talk about. Well, let's kind of talk more about him as a football player. Like, this guy's not a scrub. He's a 4-star linebacker, and he's got kind of that tenacity to himself. I see a lot of people on OU Twitter and then OU message boards kind of relating like, oh, is he kind of like a Danny Stutzman? Kind of maybe like a lazy thing because he's out from the East and he's a bigger body guy. And he's not maybe as highly recruited as a high-end 4-star, but he's still a physical specimen. So I think this is going to be a great addition to this class. It's something fun. And like you said, even if he does end up liking baseball more, the transition doesn't work with the transfer portal nowadays. taking these guys is what you got to do. Get as many people as you can in each recruiting class. And sometimes not all of them are going to stick. Sometimes you're going to take risks that don't work out. You know what? That's just part of the game, and you just replenish through the transfer portal, and you lose a lot through the transfer portal. So be it.
Yeah, and I'm don't want to get too into it because it's kind of old news at this point, but even the guys you think are going to be kind of surefire guys, like a Derek LeBlanc, legacy guy who likes OU, he didn't even see the field for the Sooners, didn't even get past summer, which, obviously good luck to him at UCF and everything. Everyone's situation is different and everything, but you just never can tell these days.
Yeah. Obviously. But let's kind of talk about a guy who's more in our backyard, the next recruit, and a name that everyone probably is saying, like, that kind of rings a bell in my head. Dozie Ezukanma, Eric Ezukanma's little brother, guy who absolutely torched OU at Iowa State. He's one of the many of the lines of their, big wide receivers Iowa State had that just destroyed our little 5'9", 5'10" D-backs. We get him, big body wide receiver out of Fort Worth, Texas. He's going to my wife's alma mater. Shout out. But now third wide receiver commit. He's next to KJ Daniels, Zion Kearney. Probably going to take one more in this class. Sucks that we didn't get Brian Wesco. Obviously, everyone kind of had their pipe dreams looking at him, one of the top 10 players in the nation at the wide receiver position, him going to Clemson. But right now, I think our eyes are set on a guy named Zion Reagan's after him. He's a Georgia guy, so he's trying to figure out, could I get to be in this Georgia Bulldogs football class? They don't know if they want him or not. So if Georgia ends up not wanting to take him, he's a 5'9" speedster that could finish out this recruiting class. So we got a little bit of size and we got a little bit of speed. So it's not a sexy pick when it comes down to the recruiting rankings. But still, he's got a lineage of success in his family, and I'm willing to take an Ezukanma on my team and not on another person's team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I don't have the recruiting rankings for his brother in my head, but I imagine he probably wasn't that high up there, and he worked out. So going with a guy, who has that kind of legacy type of vibe, yeah, take a flyer on him for sure. Why not?
Yeah, I'm curious. Let me look up his. He was a 4-star. Honestly, okay. That's surprising. Good for him. But to be honest with you, there is sometimes with these recruiting profiles, and obviously I don't even know which recruiting site to look at nowadays with rankings. I can't keep it straight. Obviously within the OU hemisphere, there's a lot of times where people's recruiting rankings get changed right at the end whenever they have a little bit of, very good spring practices and stuff like that. So I don't know how much I trust it, but still, I think getting an Ezukanma on Oklahoma, I'm all for it. But Bobby, let's move on, talk about kind of what I think like the 10-ish most interesting recruit stories from this weekend in ChampU BBQ. All guys with names that you guys have probably heard of, and some of them that you haven't, that I feel like that we need to talk about and kind of get, our bearings around us and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. ChampU BBQ is where these stories start like forming and everything. Mm-hmm. So let's get into the beat.
I think the biggest recruit for us this weekend that we really needed to go and make a big show for was Joseph Jonah Ajonye from Texas. And we've been talking about this guy for a long time. He was part of like the crew where we thought we were going to get the best defensive line recruiting class in OU history again. Like it seems like that every single year, Oklahoma fans are starting to say this, and we're going to be like, oh, we're going to put him next to Nwaneri, and we're going to have such a David Stone. It's going to be an absolute beast of a class. Now I feel like there's a point where we were probably leaning for him, but Georgia's come in strong. They've really came in strong, and it's going to be hard to hold them off. To be honest with you, even though looks like he really liked this weekend, Georgia, I just don't know how if you're a defensive commit or a defensive line person, just to say the least, you can't just watch the NFL draft every single year and say, why wouldn't I just go to Georgia? Maybe Philadelphia Eagles will draft me and I can actually be on a good NFL team too.
You could win a Super Bowl year one. You never know. Yeah, I get that the pull of like, this is a factory. Yeah, that's a hard thing to beat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the thing is, I feel like OU will always be able to sell with these guys. Like you have a chance to get on the field early because we obviously do not have the production that Georgia does. We have a great coach. Obviously, these guys are in these last second conversations. We're getting in the final 2, final 3 because people love Todd Bates. People love Chavez. People who've got great connections and with a developmental track record from them. But OU right now, man, it is an interior defensive line. It is an oasis. There's not an oasis. It's a barren. It's a barren desert. It's the opposite of oasis of talent in our defensive line group. We need guys like him to come through and say like, hey, I want to take this burden because I know I can go out there and I could play big time minutes in my freshman year, start as a sophomore, and then everyone knows my name going into my draft eligible year. You think it might be easy to sell, but obviously it's a very, very large bet. And sometimes going with the easy option in Georgia is a smarter move for your financial, future.
Yeah. I mean, you're selling a dream or you're selling like a project that isn't there yet. Last year, the defense obviously wasn't up to par. The defensive line especially wasn't up to par. So you're selling projections versus selling absolute raw data. We put guys in the league. Kirby Smart is, one of the best. He is the best defensive head coach in college football, trending towards one of the best in college football right now. That's an easy, safe deal. And if it doesn't work out, you could pull a Bear Alexander and transfer somewhere else.
Bear Alexander. He's man, that dude, I was not surprised at all that he was, flipping and flopping. He was doing that during his recruiting cycle. So yes, you're right. Anything's possible. They can go anywhere. But at the same time, like there's just different personality of kids, and just terms of the job market as an adult, kind of like, probably the way they're thinking versus what we're thinking. If you're trying to get a new job, would you want to like go into a startup where maybe you might get extreme returns, but you're betting on yourself and that's your future in multiple years of your life? It could obviously have a lot of rewards, but at the same time, pretty risky. Or would you want to go into a bigger company that you're going to get the job done? And if you believe that you're a really good talent, which a lot of these kids do, they believe doesn't matter where I go, I'm going to get drafted, and Georgia is just going to set me up even better. So kind of flip-flop. Moral of the story with Joseph Jonah-Ajonye, I don't feel as confident, but I understand the door is still open. You never know what happens, but I think it might be some OU fans angry later in the year. Here's an OU guy a defensive line that I think OU could get, and I feel a little bit more confident about, Nigel Smith. He's another Texas defensive line guy. He's also very highly rated, 4-star guy, and he's just been to Oklahoma visiting a lot. And it seems like we're probably going to have to continue to wait just a little bit more and more with him, but I wouldn't be surprised, or I would be kind of confident to say we're probably the leader for him. So that's a big-bodied defensive lineman that might go and take that spot if we don't get a guy like Joseph Ajonye.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, he's interesting because, his dad played basketball at SMU. This is a big dude we're talking about here. So, if we got a guy like him, obviously not. I'd be thrilled. You'd have to be thrilled. That's a big win in the state of Texas if you can pull it off.
Yeah. So I think that we really need to put a lot of effort towards him. But I think as fans, keep your eye on him. Just see how he's going to speak on Twitter and what's his body language, because he would be a big time get for us. So here's a little bit of a negative sandwich in terms of OU recruiting. Then we'll just get into a lot of positive stuff. Just because I'm trying to put, these interesting recruits that people know their name at the front end of this, and we can kind of get into the weeds as we go. Next name, people know the name Caden Durham, running back. And we saw a lot of crystal balls for him coming out of this weekend. Here's the thing. We knew that it's us versus LSU, and that's what the fans are going for. Whenever you say like, oh, he went to ChampU BBQ and now we're getting crystal balls for him, maybe we came into the lead. Maybe we did. I wouldn't be surprised. But at the same time, he isn't committing. He's still taking visits. He's got a visit scheduled for LSU coming up. I think he's got an unofficial and an official visit schedule that he's going to go to. And if those things are happening, he's not committed to OU. So that means there's still an opportunity for LSU to take back the lead, because we were in second place before this weekend. And, recency bias is strong with this recruiting and these kids. So unfortunate, but I think that we probably will lose our lead again. But still, it's going to be another thing that we need to keep our eye on.
Yeah, it's one of those, last one in the room wins sort of thing.
Yeah, and with the visits already scheduled and kind of how he has everything set up, I would probably, if I'm not any kind of recruiting expert, obviously, I just read stuff and give my opinion on it. But like my read of the room on him is probably LSU would come out. So sorry, OU fans. I know a lot of people have been running with that in terms of, all these crystal balls and predictions. I'm just not as optimistic as other people. Let's talk about some fun stuff though. Let's talk about guys that were probably all these guys I'm about to say, maybe about a couple of them are probably OU leans. Let's talk Devin Jordan from Union High School. I feel like I didn't hear much about this name until recently. But here we go, trying to recruit Tulsa and trying to get guys from Union. He came to ChampU BBQs, a DB, 5'11" kind of guy, good athlete. And he's trying to commit in the fall and looks like that he's probably leaning OU after this. And we've talked about it all the time, Bobby, how important it is to try to get another grasp and a foothold in Tulsa, because there's this nasty, weird thing going on a couple years ago of like this negative blah view of us with the Josh Jacobs stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's massive. The issues in Tulsa have been well documented, just kind of a bit of a fog across, the big time players, Union, Jinx, maybe a little less so Jinx, but Booker T. Washington, never really getting a big recruiting foothold. In fact, kind of the opposite. And I obviously some of that's the old guard. Some of that maybe might have been how, Stoops was recruiting towards the end. This would be a really good way to make a big impression in the Tulsa area for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, like Union, Jinx, those are guys that you need to get because they're going to consistently have players that are going to come out and be Division I guys. But even like looking at guys like Cole Adams last year who ended up going to Alabama, wide receiver from Wausau, like you need to have a foothold of the whole Tulsa area. So I'm glad that there's a guy coming up and his stock's getting higher and more teams are looking at him, and OU is thinking that he might be a guy that want to be in their class. That is a good news for me. Even if he doesn't pan out, I just want as many Tulsa guys right now so we can get back our pipeline.
Right. And, looking at the competition, just kind of what we're seeing, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, TCU. This is, no shade to them, but like putting the SEC badge on your chest and be like, hey, you can stay close to home and play in the SEC. That's a pretty big sell.
Yeah, and it's only a matter of time before, Jinx Union creates some massive 5-star guy again, and we don't want another Dax situation at the DB position, right. Obviously. And that's just that was obviously another unique position with, with his brother, Just Hill and all that kind of stuff. It's good to create that pipeline. I think there's more to this DB class too, so let's talk about it. Justin Dinson's another name that people have been talking about. He's from Rhode Island, and that is very odd. I'm like, okay, a Rhode Island guy's coming over for ChampU BBQ. If you're coming all the way from Rhode Island, you probably really like us. And he's a 3-star guy, but he's getting recruited by Alabama, Florida, and A&M. They were in his top 5 along with OU and Michigan State. And his commitment timeline is July 1st. So really like the visit, came all the way over. We're in his top group. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Rhode Island guy in our class. Like, I don't even know if you can think of anyone from Rhode Island that's came to Oklahoma.
I don't think I can think of a single person I know from Rhode Island for that matter.
Right. And I mean, like, it's not like a football state where I see a lot of Rhode Islanders come out of.
That guy's tape must just be insanely good. Like that is one of those things where someone caught up or like pulled up his huddle. Like, this guy is great. And it got out there. And I mean, kid has to be good if he's getting attention from names like, OU, Alabama, et cetera, et cetera. That's big time.
Yeah. Whenever you see these guys, he's a 6'2" profile, but the recruiting services haven't caught up with his ranking, but he's still getting, his top list is the kind of like very, very stout with Texas A&M, Alabama, OU, Florida. Like, that he's better than what people are saying is. And 3-star is not going to last for long. As soon as he commits, whether to OU or somewhere else, that recruiting ranking is going to go up.
Definitely.
All right, let's talk about some other guys that might hop in the boat. And I think a really fun one to talk about is Samaj Jones, quarterback from also the same area. up in the Northeast. What in the world is going on with OU right now? Why would we take 2 quarterbacks in this class? And I kind of want your mindset on this, because a lot of people I feel like are saying, good, why not? One might transfer. You never know. Michael Hawkins might leave. Or Samaj Jones might be really good. Why not take 2 stabs at it? But do you think taking 2 quarterbacks in a class is positive?
It's, I'm of the mindset that, any competition is good. I think too much at times, especially with the, quarterback position, it could be you can get babied a little bit. So my thing is, Michael Hawkins, obviously a great talent, but he's not, I don't think he's at a level where you get too worried about, trying to scare him off. I think it'd be solid, healthy competition. Let him duke it out. If you want to bring another one in, why not? That's kind of my thought process on it. And I think competition, never a bad thing. If he's better than Hawkins, then I want the better one. That's going to be the case with any player. Yeah, but yeah, I do think you maybe run the risk of hurt feelings, but he's not a Jackson Arnold type of anchor quarterback, I don't think.
No, and the thing is, they would not take Samaj Jones. So let me just say this straight up. I think Samaj Jones is probably going to end up being an Oklahoma quarterback, especially if we give him the green light. And the only way that we would give Samaj Jones a green light to commit is if we got full clearance from Michael Hawkins. And you can say oh, Michael Hawkins is totally cool with it, But, there's a lot of times hey, Michael, we're kind of interested in bringing in someone to compete with you. You cool with this? Some people are just yeah, do whatever. I believe in myself. But deep down, you're kind of really don't want it. But at the same time, I'm not going to say no. Or it could be completely cool with it and he's down for the competition. Moral of the story is, here in a year, maybe even 2 years, one of them is going to be in the transfer portal. So, I'm hoping it's not going to be a situation like Nick Evers, where it's I still think he's got meat on the bone, but he didn't get, the time and attention that he wanted. So now he's in the transfer portal. And now he's stuck at Wisconsin in a very similar position. Hopefully it'll be the best person wins out that quarterback battle and we get the better and the other guy is leaving because he needs another opportunity elsewhere.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, that's just the nature of it. And, we have Jackson Arnold for a couple years. So what probably one of them is going to have to wait a little bit at best, just to be frank.
Yeah. And, Michael Hawkins has really strong connection with TCU. So we'll see that. But I'm not nervous, but at the same time, I'm not super excited, rah about 2 quarterback commits, it doesn't really get me too excited. But let's kind of talk about some more OU legacy talk here, kind of bridging from Hawkins. Let's talk about Max Anderson, Nate Anderson's little brother. He's another guy that he posted the big news coming soon on Twitter, and OU fans kind of started rumbling around trying to figure out, what's going on here? Is he going to commit? Yeah, he's probably going to commit here pretty soon. The thing is, I don't know if I'm in his position. I obviously would very much respect Bill Bedenbaugh and how much they did, and obviously the OU system that has housed his brother. But I look at Nate Anderson. This is a guy that was very, very highly rated guard, and he's been at the bottom of our depth chart for a while now. I don't know if I would want to follow my brother's footsteps if he hasn't really cracked into the rotation. Tennessee has been a really strong person in his recruitment, and I would feel more likely, even though he did make that tweet just after ChampU, that he's probably thinking maybe I want to go Tennessee. That's just my thought process.
Yeah, that's the thing with the legacy thing, is either it leaves a good experience or a bad one. And, if you're struggling to, crack the rotation at the bottom, that's not encouraging. So I could definitely see him trying to go with the Vols, do something a little different there.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, Nate doesn't have any kind of animosity towards the system because he would have been in the transfer portal. If you even have just even a lick of animosity, you're in the transfer portal. So obviously Nate is doing fine at Oklahoma, but at the same time, it just seems just a little odd if I was little brother, be should I really go to a place where my big brother really can't even play? I just feel I'd want to go somewhere, else and just kind of see something brand new.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just looking at, Anderson's run here, redshirted 2020, didn't play in 2021 at all, and then played 4 games, last year. So, and all of those were blowouts. So he hasn't gotten any significant burn. He's about to be a redshirt junior. So I understand why he'd be wary.
Yeah. And see, like, I understand he's still young, but you can kind of tell in beating both system who he likes. And you can kind of tell, like, he gets the young guys in and gets a lot of snaps throughout games. And you're not really seeing that as much from Nate. So moving on, let's talk about something positive. Let's talk about Caden Massey from Kansas, another offensive line guy. We continue to talk about this all the time when we talk about recruiting, Bobby. It's like these offensive line guys aren't these crazy high recruits, but I will always, always, always trust Bill Beatonbow. He sees what he likes and he goes after it. Caden Massey, our competition right now is Kansas State. It's us versus Kansas State. I mean, I don't want to be an arrogant OU fan, but like in terms of recruiting, like that's not a very, regular thing that we say. And it's kind of like a heated matchup. Should he stay in his same area or should he go to Oklahoma with a better developer? So that's another name to keep an eye on.
Yeah, not only that, but Brent as a whole, like obviously not his side of the ball, very good at recruiting Kansas. As we've noticed, I feel like he takes a shine to the Kansas kids like himself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like it's a good kid. So we'll continue to watch. I think one of the most fun guys just to like discuss, and I don't even know if there's going to be any there's not, maybe I don't even know if it's going to be worth the time to talk about it, but this is a guy that I think is really fun to talk about. It's Bennett Warren, another offensive lineman from Sugar Land, Texas. Have you seen pictures of him? He is ginormous. He is like 6'8" monster of a man. Like people are talking about, oh, is he the next Orlando Brown? His recruiting ranking isn't as high, kind of similar story to Orlando Brown, but a guy that's 6'8", that big and that body type, Bill Beatonbow has a reputation of taking guys that might not. So whenever you're a 6'8" big offensive lineman, a lot of these guys are high recruiting prospects. This guy doesn't have as many of those numbers. Could he go into Bill Beatonbow's system, learn the tricks of the trade, get his footwork down, and have another story where he could be a kind of a guy like Orlando Brown? I think that is an easy recruiting pitch because Orlando Brown's one of the highest paid offensive linemen in NFL right now.
Yeah, and not only that, but you also have Phil Lodeholt on staff, who
absolutely
is, obviously Beatonbow wasn't his coach at the time, but he's experienced it. He took his time at OU and made it a wonderful OU career, NFL career after his time at OU, and he knows the ins and outs of playing football at that height, that size.
He's 6'8" as well.
It's tough. It's difficult to play that big, obviously we talk low man wins. It's a different style entirely. And, frankly, I imagine if you're 6'8", you don't meet a lot of other 6'8" people who can kind of relate. So I think that type of, not every, you'd be hard pressed to find a college football staff that has a 6'8", former lineman on it. That is rare. So I think that kind of relatability kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah, it's us versus Michigan, crystal balls and everything for Michigan, but just a fun topic, just something to think about. And I guarantee you that was the pitch in the recruiting room.
Yeah, Michigan's tough. That's a double back-to-back Joe Moore award-winning side. So yeah.
Yeah, like we can talk about our development in terms of, what we're putting into the league, but at the same time, like you said, that's very, very immediate and they are obviously a very good program. That was my number 9. Let's just end it off number 10. Then I'll kind of talk about a little bit of our current commits that were there. Taylor Tatum, I know people are interested in that name. Big time running back from Longview, Texas. Us versus USC. It's going to be at USC. I think we can just throw that one in the dump and just say, oh, well. But still cool that he's coming, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's silently committed to USC, just in terms of the language around him.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to beat that flash, but,
Oh, well, it's fine because I kind of like our running backs this year. But let's talk about our current commits in this class and kind of just things that I noticed and maybe some things that you kind of want to talk about from our current commits. I noticed that Isaiah Autry was a big time recruiter and was all over Twitter and was constantly taking pictures, and seems like he was a big voice within the room. And I understand there's probably a lot of guys whenever they're in a big group with a bunch of other people, obviously they're recruiting others, but I think seeing that out in public is really important, that you have extremely extroverted and bold guys trying to push other kids into like, hey, you should come and play with OU. Because I mean, these are kids, and we say it all the time, but how many times do you want to go and make a big decision in your life? Maybe you're not from the area. There's maybe one guy from Oklahoma City that was there. You don't want to make a big move to a different place unless you know you have friends there. And having guys like that are easy to get along with, are constantly pushing you and talking to you, make you feel like I can make the move from Rhode Island. I can make the move from Pennsylvania to Oklahoma because there's guys that I know I can get along with that like me.
Yeah, and not only that, but him being a pretty strong force is great. You know, he's from Mississippi. So, you know, that kind of like, hey, you know, I'm from out of state too, you know, kind of builds a little bit of a bond there.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, seeing Zion Kearney get back and getting back in town, that's good. Really need to hold on to him. I think we will. But, you know, that's a top 100 recruit. That's our best guy. And obviously having big time wide receivers is a big deal for us moving forward. Other guys that were OU got commits that were there. KJ Daniels, the other wide receiver commit, was there as well. And Jeremiah Newcomb as well, the DB. I think, you know, that's like, it's a good group. It seems like things went really well this recruiting weekend. And even though, like, you know, we just got 2 commits now, we'll probably see the fruits of our labor for the rest of the year this visit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing about ChampU is, you know, it's changed over the years. You know, I feel like under Lincoln Riley, you've got a ton of commits. But because of the way Venables does his, you know, commitments, you know, you have to, you know, no visits after, et cetera, et cetera. You see that happen a little less. And I think, I don't know, I think OU fans are like trained to see like just a billion massive commits all come from ChampU, and it feels weird when you don't get that immediate rush, you know, that weekend. But it's still a very early part of the cycle. And as we've known, sometimes you have a big ChampU, and sometimes guys fade after it. You know, look at I believe Colton Vasek a ChampU commit? Yeah,
so I think he was right around that time. I think so. Yeah. I'm trying to remember it because maybe it was in the fall. I don't remember. Yeah, it's the moral of the story is it's, you know, it's fun and all, but it's all about, you know, if everyone's having good vibes and they're making good connections, that's what we need. Yeah. But I'm not going to talk about David Stone this podcast. If you guys are coming here thinking that you're going to get some brand new David Stone information, it's not happening. I'll continue to say it over and over and over and over again that this dude's just playing the game. So if you think he's going to hop in like, oh, it was a great recruiting weekend, and it's a great time for David Stone to hop in, he's going to do things on his own time. He's loving all the spotlight. Don't expect anything until probably like late middle of the season before early signing day with him.
Yeah, and I would rather him do that than commit or silent commit and then, you know, still do everything and pull on our heartstrings. And, you know, that's not fun. That's not fun. So, yeah, he's taking his time. I'm fine with that. Yeah. You know, not everybody has to be the, you know, I've been in the class since day one, I'm rallying the guys. That's fine. You know, as long as he gets to where he wants to go. And, you know, obviously, hopefully that's OU. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I completely understand why he's doing that. If you are that talented and that wanted, play the game and hold out, because you know you're going to have a spot no matter what. So go out there, have fun with it. You're never going to have this experience again, probably at this scale. Hopefully you don't get in the transfer portal, but like to go out and visits and people to cater you constantly, you know, like we talk about, it was kind of similar. You didn't really get to go through it, but like summer rush for fraternities. If anyone listening can relate to this, you go out and you go to all of those parties that people invite you to. People are spending money. I mean, you saw from the other side of things whenever you were at Rush Cottage, but like you go out and you see everyone, even if you don't think you're going to go to that, because you know you're going to have an invite in the end. You know, it's not like, you know, in college football recruiting right now, you know, some of the lesser ranking guys, you know, if they do make too many visits, they might lose their spot. You know, You are sought after. Go take your visits. Go have fun if you're David Stone.
Exactly. That's the tier he's on. Absolutely. 100%. He's going to be playing big time, the big two, either Big Ten or SEC football for sure.
Yeah. And so kind of ending this out, just from our perspective, recruiting, I think something really fun to talk about is, did you see the tape of Andy Bass, the Heritage Hall the Heritage Hall kid?
Yes.
At Brent Venables' camp?
I did. He was tearing it up.
I cannot believe that. I did not even realize that he was the 100-meter champ for, I guess 3A. But he's got a lot of speed. He was thinking about, Syracuse is probably his leader as a quarterback position. OU offering him as an athlete. Heritage Hall, put some respect on that name, because, everyone thinks about Sterling Shepard, but, obviously what Gavin Freeman did as quickly as he did last year, it's making OU look at that high school, obviously us as alumni, saying there's getting some athletes out there, and we didn't even give Gavin Freeman a scholarship right out of high school. And that was lucky that they still got him from Texas Tech, because he's going to be a huge part of our offense this year. Andy Bass, if you want another speed guy from Heritage Hall, bring him back in the boat. Let's do it.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting stuff, to say the least. I love it. The more Heritage Hall Chargers, the better. Freeman was the first one since Sterling Shepard. And, Bass is cool because I don't believe he's a OU legacy. Freeman and Shepard were.
Yep.
In terms of football legacies. So pretty cool stuff for sure.
Yeah. So that's all I've got. You got anything else in terms of what you've been seeing? Anything from the Sheebs?
Nothing. Well, and if I did see anything from the Sheeb, I would, I'd have to kill you to tell you, or ask you to donate $1 to the Sheeb and read it yourself. Because I ain't divulging anything from our good old buddy Red Dirt Sport. I already basically stole the concept of Bye Bye Big 12, which I have acknowledged. Thank you. Sorry about that, but no. I gotta say, some stuff with 2025 is interesting. I know we were mainly talking.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot about that.
And so much can happen, but two kind of biggish things going on. Primarily, our 2025 quarterback commit. He's moving to Carl Albert. What do you think about that?
It's whenever you see a quarterback commit in 2025, Kevin Sperry commit as early as he did, you'd be like, this is a little odd. But quarterbacks, they can recruit and commit whenever they want to, because they're kind of like the cornerstones of the class. It just shows you how much invested he is into being an Oklahoma Sooner, that now he's just transferring to Carl Albert. His family's probably just going to go ahead and move here, and they're just preparing. It's this guy is going to be a junior. It's he's not going to be a senior. He's going to be a junior, and he's already preparing for his life in Oklahoma. So there you go. That is an absolute cornerstone of the 2025 class.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely massive. And I got to say, if you're I don't follow Oklahoma high school football all that much, but what I do know is that Carl Albert's pretty damn good. So everybody in 5A football has to be a little bit shook there, to say the least.
Yeah.
I also want to bring up Devon Mitchell, the tight end down at Los Alamitos, stopped by and the ChampU BBQ and everything. Your thoughts on him? Super early, but looks to be an absolute massive potential piece for the Sooners.
I should have talked about him because he's on commitment watch. He's getting, I think, July 8th is his date, and he's going to reclassify. You talk about 2025 there. No, he's going to be 2024 kid. This is a 5-star tight end. And, whenever he reclassify, will he really still be a 5-star within the class? Maybe not, because it's going to be a little bit more of a learning curve. He'll be a little bit younger, but there's absolute talent there. 6'4" guy. Los Alamitos, is a powerhouse of a college football factory out there for, all the guys that come through there. He is going to be a very big part of this class. And although, makes me think whenever these guys are classified, are they really ready to come out and play, or should they have spent an extra year in high school? But at the same time, they know themselves best. They know that they're ready. Come through the system. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. And one of those things is physically he looks there. Physically, he looks like he could play college football in a year. And not only that, but run him through the Schmitty gauntlet. Hey, I'm just saying, even if you have to sit a year, getting involved in the system, not a bad thing at all. So
yeah, 2025 was looking good with him. It's still going to be good, but I am very happy to have him in 2024 because we need some tight end help pretty quickly. So I think he would do a justice for OU of reclassifying. But other than that, I mean, I think just kind of like to wrap it all up, Bobby, names that really keep an eye on. Obviously, Devon Mitchell. I should have said that one earlier. Glad for bringing that up. Devin Jordan, Union guy, fall commitment timeline, but still keep an eye on him. Also keep an eye on Justin Denson from Rhode Island, July 1st commitment. Probably will be the Oklahoma Sooners there. And then Max Anderson, his commitment is in the near future. Us versus Tennessee. Let's see what happens.
Absolutely, Jamison. I'm excited. I know I've seen some people on Twitter getting a little doom and gloomy, but like the same thing happened last year and we got better. We ended up with the top 5 class. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm optimistic. So I'm excited to see how everything ends up. Well, any final thoughts before we head out? I know there's a lot on the board to talk about, but we'll reconvene the full pod for a bit of a summer whatchamacallit coming up soon. But any final words?
No, excited about the OU 2024 SEC schedule. Excited to talk about some more bye-bye, what we've been doing recently. We're thinking about doing bye-bye OSU tomorrow, and that's going to be a really, really fun episode. So stay tuned for that. And I feel like a lot of people have been watching those and liking them, go ahead and subscribe. We need to get to 500. We're 19 away. Yes. So if you're listening right now on replay, just go ahead and subscribe to us. Go help us out. Watch our stuff if you want to, but if not, just do your good deed of the day and give us a sub.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. We're about to be ramping this thing up as we get closer to college football season. It's almost here. Like we're getting close to starting previews and stuff. I cannot wait. Incredibly excited about this season. So look, if you want to see that stuff, if you want to see like our in-depth college football type of stuff that we're about to be getting into, hammer that subscription button and make sure to give the video like. Any comments, love interacting with y'all on those. Make sure to leave them below. So yeah, exciting stuff. So yeah, we got the bye series continuing, rolling strong. Looking forward to more of it. So all right, Jamison, thank you so much for your time. I think it's time to head on out. So and thank y'all so much for listening. Always great talking Sooner football with y'all. So until next time, have a good one, everybody, and